everybody. My name is Aria.
And my name is Alice.
From Bach Studio. We're here today at the King's College at the Cambridge University to meet with Professor John Dunn, who is an expert in political theory.
We're so excited. Are you ready?
Let's go!
Hello, Professor Dunn, and thanks for making the time to meet with us today.
No, it's very nice to meet you.
What exactly is political theory, and why is it important?
Well, political theory is an attempt to understand as clearly as humans can understand politics. And politics is important more now than it's ever been before, because politics is what's actually threatening the extinction of the human species, the species you and I belong to. So that's as important as anything can get from a human point of view.
How can people decide what type of government is best? Is there a way to make everybody happy?
Let's take whether people can decide what kind of government to have. People can certainly think about what would be a good type of government, and they actually think many different things. They disagree with each other about that. But what's important is whether they have to disagree with each other about that. And unfortunately, the answer to that is, well, they probably do have to. There have been various attempts to explain how they might not have to, of which the the cleverest and deepest, I think, was made a long time ago in Athens by a philosopher called Plato. And he thought that the way in which they could in principle agree and have good reason to agree is they could see what really does matter for human beings and what's really good. And he thought that would be a definite shape. And if you could see that shape, then you couldn't, if you could see that shape, you would have to recognize it. You'd have to recognize that that was the answer, ultimate answer to all human questions about what to do. But unfortunately, he also thought that actually lots of humans can't really recognize that. In fact, he thought most humans can't actually recognize that for themselves. So they need to have it recognized for them by people who can, or could anyway. And he then explained that for that to happen, two other things would have to happen. One of which is that people would have to be picked out as capable in principle of being able to recognize it, and trained very, very carefully to increase to the maximum their ability to do so. And he also thought that all features of the world they lived in together, which were controllable by human actions, would have to be controlled by those people. And that is a very, very deep thought. And I think actually, unfortunately, is probably right. But in the world that you live in, and I live in, and your father lives in, nothing at all like that is true. So although people can actually think about what would be a good government from their point of view and on the basis of their experience, they can't actually, they disagree so much and so inevitably. I mean, they can't stop disagreeing. There's no way of stopping them disagreeing, because the way that there might have been of stopping them disagreeing was the way that was explained by Plato. But that's not, and Plato didn't think it could actually happen, I don't think. But I mean, that's disagreed about by people who know about Plato as much as one can. But I don't think myself that Plato thought it could happen. He just thought that that was what explained why human beings were in such trouble in their relations with each other. And politics is that trouble, the trouble humans have in their relations with each other on any scale, actually, but particularly on a very large scale.
So why do different countries have different types of governments?
Well-
Can't we just choose one government for everybody?
We can't choose just one government for everybody because we are confused and partial in the way we look at things, as I tried to explain. But actually, there isn't any mechanism. There's no way. There's no causal structure. There's no machine which could make that happen. And the governments that countries have across the world are products of their own history, of what's happened in them. And everybody in the world that's lucky enough to have any kind of government at all has a government which they haven't chosen, and which, in a sense, no one, a very small number of people have chosen before them. There are governments which have been created, usually by military conquest, and they either are or aren't accepted by those whom they govern. And of course, some of them are absolutely appalling. So it's not a very good thing if they are accepted, although maybe it's better than if they aren't, because it's not so clear what to do if you have a truly ghastly government. If you have a truly ghastly government, you can fight it, but then that's quite likely to make everything worse rather than better.
So if political theories work, why do we see so many problems in them?
Well, on my account, they don't work in the way that we would need them to work to dissolve the problems. What they aren't is effective machines for solving problems. Any accurate account of what politics is could not, in principle, be an account which showed how to remove it, how to get rid of it, how to get beyond politics to somewhere safer and saner and better for everyone. There is no such place for humans in the world.
We read politics in newspapers and talk about it with my parents, but how does this political theory be applicable in our everyday lives?
Well, I don't think there's any question that it is quite applicable in everyday life. I mean, what is true about political theory is if you understand what is fundamentally happening interactively between human beings, you will definitely be less puzzled by what is happening, and you will have at least some idea of what could make it less bad in the immediate setting that you find yourself in. So, for example, in this country, to take all examples are partisan, they're examples of something which people disagree about very strongly. But to take an example from this country, for about a dozen years, 12 years, this country was governed by a conservative government, sometimes in coalition with others, which restrained it a bit. And that government, over time, was cumulatively absolutely disastrous. And it got worse and worse until very shortly before the very end, when it got very slightly less bad. Actually, a very large percentage of the population agreed that it had been disastrous. They didn't agree about what to do to make the country govern better. But they did agree that it had been disastrous and that it must stop. So they had, as they have every roughly 5 years, the opportunity at least to say, this must stop. And they said it quite emphatically. And for less clear reasons, what appeared instead was another government with really rather a lot of power in the very short term, because it controlled the legislature, which is where the British government works through the legislature. I mean, the American government doesn't really. But anyway, the British government does. Whether they will actually do better is a question we just have to wait to see, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Professor Dunn.
Thank you, Professor Dunn.
Well, it was very nice talking to you.
Well, there you have it. Political theory can help give you a better understanding about what's happening around you and what politics really is, which is really interesting. So let's keep exploring. And for more, follow us on Bach Bros Studio. See you next time. Bye!